Welcome to QuickSpeak, the English podcast that helps you improve your English skills. Today we're going to talk about something we all do.
Okay.
We compare ourselves to others. It's natural to look around and see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
You know what they have achieved, but sometimes this comparison can make us feel bad.
It's true. Comparing ourselves to others is very human.
Right.
It's something we've likely been doing since the earliest days of humanity.
That's interesting. Why do you think we do it?
Well,
Is it just a modern thing? Maybe because of social media?
social media certainly amplifies our tendency to compare.
Right.
But the roots of comparison likely go much deeper.
Yeah.
Imagine our ancestors living in tribes constantly needing to assess their standing within the group.
So they were comparing themselves to figure out who was stronger, who had more resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This kind of comparison was likely essential for survival.
Right.
It helped our ancestors determine who to align with, who to learn from, and even who to avoid.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
It was a way to navigate the social world and increase their chances of survival.
precisely. But in today's world, where survival isn't always on the line,
Right.
this constant comparison can sometimes lead us down a path of negativity.
I see what you mean. We're still wired to compare, but the stakes are different now.
Right.
And instead of comparing ourselves to people in our immediate tribe, we're comparing ourselves to everyone we see online,
Yeah.
which can feel overwhelming.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
This brings us to an important concept in psychology called social comparison theory.
Okay.
It suggests that we have this innate drive to evaluate ourselves by comparing ourselves to others. We're constantly trying to understand where we stand in relation to those around us.
So it's not just a matter of looking at someone and thinking, oh, they're taller than me or they have a nicer car.
Right.
It's a deeper, more fundamental need to assess our abilities and our worth.
That's right. We use these comparisons to get a sense of our own strengths and weaknesses,
Right.
our successes and failures.
Uh-huh.
It's a way of measuring ourselves against a perceived standard.
And this can manifest in all sorts of ways, can it? We might compare our careers, our relationships, our appearance, our talents, really anything that we consider important.
Absolutely. And the problem is, these comparisons aren't always helpful.
Right.
Sometimes they can be motivating, inspiring us to improve and grow, but often they can lead to negative self-evaluations, making us feel inadequate, envious, or even resentful.
So how can we tell when comparison is helpful and when it's harmful? Is there a way to distinguish between the two?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something we'll explore further in this episode.
Okay.
But for now, it's important to understand that there are two main types of comparisons we make:
Okay.
upward comparisons and downward comparisons.
Could you explain the difference between those two?
Of course. Upward comparisons involve looking at those we perceive as better than us in some way.
Okay.
Maybe they're more successful, more talented, or more attractive in our eyes.
So if I'm learning English and I compare myself to someone who speaks fluently, that would be an upward comparison.
Exactly.
Okay.
And these upward comparisons can be motivating.
Yeah.
They can show us what's possible and inspire us to reach for higher goals.
But I could also see how they can make you feel discouraged if you focus too much on the gap between where you are and where you want to be.
Precisely. And that's where downward comparisons come in. These comparisons involve looking at those we perceive as less fortunate or less skilled than us.
So if I'm struggling to learn English, I might compare myself to someone who's even further behind in their language journey.
That's right. And while this type of comparison might provide a temporary boost to our self-esteem, it can also be detrimental in the long run.
How so?
Well, it can lead to complacency. If we're constantly comparing ourselves to those who are, quote, worse off, we might lose the motivation to improve.
Right.
We might start thinking, well, at least I'm not as bad as that person.
Mm-hmm.
And we become content with mediocrity.
That's a really important point. It seems like both upward and downward comparisons can have their pros and cons.
Yeah,
It all depends on how we approach them and what we take away from them.
I couldn't agree more. And that's what we're going to delve into in the rest of this episode.
Okay.
We'll explore how to recognize when comparison is holding us back and how to shift our focus from comparing ourselves to others to focusing on our own personal growth.
That sounds helpful. I'm looking forward to learning more about that. But first, I think it's important to understand the negative impacts comparison can have on our well-being.
Okay.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. That's a crucial part of this conversation. And it's something that the materials you provided go into in quite a bit of detail. One of the biggest downsides to constant comparison is that, well, it can lead to unrealistic expectations. Think about it. We're often comparing our everyday lives to the carefully curated images we see online.
It's like we're comparing our whole messy reality to, like, someone's highlight reel.
Right.
And of course, we're going to come up short.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We start to believe that everyone else is happy, successful, and has it all figured out.
Right.
Except for us.
Yeah.
This can be incredibly damaging to our self-esteem.
So instead of focusing on our own progress and achievements, we're constantly measuring ourselves against an impossible standard.
That's right. And when we inevitably fall short of this idealized image, we start to feel inadequate.
Right.
We might even begin to doubt our own abilities and worth.
Yeah.
You know?
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We believe we're not good enough, so we start acting in ways that confirm that belief.
And this negativity can spill over into other areas of our lives. Research has shown a strong link between social comparison and feelings of anxiety and depression.
That makes sense. When we're constantly evaluating ourselves against others and feeling like we don't measure up, it's bound to take a toll on our mental health.
Yeah.
Right.
It can also impact our decision-making.
Oh, yeah.
We might start making choices based on what we think will impress others or make us seem successful, rather than what truly aligns with our own values and goals.
So we end up chasing external validation instead of internal fulfillment. We're living someone else's life instead of our own.
Precisely. And this can lead to a lot of wasted time and energy. We're so focused on keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, that we don't have the time or energy to invest in our own personal growth and development.
It sounds exhausting.
It is.
Like you're always striving for something that's just out of reach.
And this constant striving can also have a negative impact on our relationships. When we're preoccupied with comparing ourselves to others, it can breed feelings of jealousy, resentment, and competitiveness.
It's like you're viewing other people as rivals instead of friends or allies.
Exactly. And this can create distance and tension in our relationships, making it difficult to connect with others on a deeper level.
So we've talked about how comparison can lead to unrealistic expectations, damage our self-esteem, fuel anxiety and depression, distort our decision-making, drain our energy, and strain our relationships. It's a pretty bleak picture.
It can certainly feel that way when we're caught in the comparison trap. But the good news is that there are ways to escape this trap and start living a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. What are some practical strategies we can use to break free from this cycle of comparison?
Well, one of the most effective approaches is to shift our focus from comparing ourselves to others to focusing on our own personal growth.
So instead of thinking, I wish I were as successful as her, I could think, what steps can I take to advance in my own career?
Exactly. It's about identifying your own values, aspirations, and passions,
Right.
and then creating a roadmap to reach those goals.
Okay.
When we have a clear vision for our own future, we're less likely to get sidetracked by comparing ourselves to others.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about defining our own path instead of trying to follow someone else's.
Another crucial strategy is to practice self-compassion.
Okay.
This means treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a good friend. It's about recognizing that everyone makes mistakes, that everyone has flaws, and that it's okay to not be perfect.
It's about being gentle with ourselves, right? Instead of beating ourselves up when we fall short, we can acknowledge our struggles and offer ourselves support and encouragement.
Precisely. Self-compassion is a powerful antidote to the negativity that comparison can breed. It helps us to accept ourselves as we are, flaws and all, and to focus on our own growth and well-being.
This is especially important when it comes to learning a new language, like English. It's so easy to get discouraged when you compare yourself to native speakers or those who are more fluent.
You're absolutely right. It's essential to remember that everyone learns at their own pace, and that making mistakes is a natural part of the process. Instead of comparing yourself to others, focus on celebrating your own progress, however small it may seem.
Every new word learned, every conversation practiced is a step in the right direction.
Exactly. And to help you stay on track and appreciate your progress, it can be helpful to cultivate a growth mindset.
Okay.
This means embracing challenges as opportunities for learning and development, rather than seeing them as threats to our self-worth.
So instead of saying, I'm so bad at English, I could say, I'm learning and getting better with practice.
Precisely. A growth mindset allows us to see setbacks as temporary
Right.
and to believe that we can improve our skills and abilities through effort and persistence.
It's about focusing on the journey, not just the destination.
And speaking of journeys, let's talk about our relationship with social media. It's no secret that social media can be a breeding ground for comparison.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid those perfectly filtered photos and carefully curated stories.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in the illusion that everyone else is living a perfect life.
That's why it's important to be mindful of our social media consumption. We can choose to limit our exposure to platforms that trigger comparison or to be more selective about who we follow.
So instead of following influencers who only post about their perfect lives, we could seek out accounts that inspire us in a more authentic and relatable way.
Exactly. And when we do use social media, it's helpful to remind ourselves that we're only seeing a curated snapshot of people's lives.
Right.
We don't know what's going on behind the scenes or what challenges they might be facing.
It's like looking at a beautiful painting. We admire the artistry, but we don't expect the artist's life to be as flawless as the canvas.
Another helpful strategy is to keep a progress journal. This is a simple but powerful way to document our own achievements and growth over time.
So we could write down new English words we've learned, conversations we've had, or any other progress we've made toward our goals.
Exactly. By regularly reflecting on our own accomplishments, we can reinforce our sense of self-worth and build confidence in our abilities.
It's a way of celebrating our wins, big and small.
And it's important to remember that seeking inspiration from others is not the same as comparing ourselves to them.
Okay.
We can admire someone's achievements or qualities without feeling the need to measure ourselves against them.
So instead of feeling envious or inadequate, we can use their example to motivate and inspire us on our own path.
Precisely. And it's important to focus on our own unique strengths and talents. We all have something special to offer the world.
Right.
And when we recognize and cultivate our own gifts, we're less likely to feel the need to compare ourselves to others.
It's about embracing what makes us unique and celebrating our individuality. We don't have to be like anyone else. We can be our best selves.
Another powerful tool for combating comparison is gratitude.
Oh.
When we focus on the things we're grateful for in our own lives, it shifts our attention away from what we might be lacking.
So instead of thinking about what other people have, we can appreciate what we have and be thankful for the good things in our lives.
Exactly. Gratitude is a powerful practice that can help us to feel more content and joyful, regardless of what others might be doing or achieving.
And I imagine it can also help to surround ourselves with supportive people.
Oh, absolutely.
People who encourage and celebrate us for who we are, rather than making us feel like we need to compete or compare ourselves.
Absolutely. The people we spend time with have a huge impact on our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Surrounding ourselves with positive and supportive individuals can make a world of difference in our self-esteem and overall well-being.
So it's about choosing to be around people who lift us up and help us to see the best in ourselves.
And finally, it's crucial to embrace imperfection. We need to remember that no one is perfect, and that making mistakes is a natural part of being human.
Yeah, it's about letting go of the need to be perfect and accepting ourselves as we are with all our flaws and imperfections. That can be a challenging concept, especially in a world that often emphasizes perfection.
It is challenging, but it's also incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
When we let go of the need to be perfect, we free ourselves from the pressure of comparison.
Yeah.
We can simply focus on being our authentic selves and enjoying the journey.
That's such a powerful message. It's about accepting ourselves, flaws and all, and striving for progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And by embracing imperfection, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities.
Right.
We can try new things, take risks, and learn from our mistakes without fear of judgment or failure.
It sounds like a much more enjoyable and fulfilling way to live. So to recap, we've talked about the downsides of comparison, but we've also explored a wide range of strategies for escaping the comparison trap and focusing on our own personal growth.
That's right. And I hope our listeners have found this conversation helpful and encouraging.
It has been a fascinating discussion. We've explored why we compare ourselves, how it can affect us, negatively, and most importantly, how to shift our focus from comparison to personal growth.
It's all about understanding that, well, while comparison is a natural human tendency, we don't have to let it control us.
Right.
We have the power to choose how we respond to those comparisons and use them to our advantage.
Speaking of using comparisons to our advantage, I'm curious, are there ever times when comparing ourselves to others can be a good thing?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Comparison can be a powerful motivator
Mm-hmm.
when used in a healthy way.
Can you give us some examples of how we can use comparison in a healthy and productive way?
Instead of focusing on envy or competition, we can choose to view other people's successes as a source of inspiration and learning. For example, if you see someone who has achieved something you admire, ask yourself, what steps did they take to get there? Or what qualities or skills helped them achieve their goals?
So it's about shifting our mindset from, I wish I were them, to what can I learn from them?
Exactly. We can analyze their journey, identify the strategies they used,
Right.
and then apply those insights to our own lives.
Okay.
This type of comparison can be incredibly motivating and empowering.
It's like looking at a map and using it to chart our own course, even if our destination is different.
Another way to use comparison effectively is to find role models who embody qualities we admire. These could be people we know personally or public figures we respect.
Yeah.
By observing their actions and behaviors, we can learn valuable lessons about leadership, perseverance, creativity, or any other qualities we aspire to develop.
It's like having a mentor who guides us along the way, even if they don't realize they're mentoring us.
Exactly. And when we use comparison in this way as a source of inspiration, learning, and motivation, it can actually help us to grow and achieve our own goals.
That's a really important takeaway. Comparison isn't inherently bad. It's all about how we approach it and what we choose to focus on.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's important to remember that everyone's journey is unique. We all have our own strengths, weaknesses, challenges, and opportunities. There's no one-size-fits-all path to success or happiness.
So comparing our journey to someone else's is like comparing apples to oranges.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Right.
It's much more helpful to focus on our own individual growth and progress, celebrating our own milestones and achievements along the way.
I love that. So instead of getting caught up in the comparison game, let's focus on running our own race at our own pace and enjoying the scenery along the way.
Beautifully said. That's a great way to summarize everything we've talked about today.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights on this important topic. It's been a truly enlightening conversation.
The pleasure was all mine.
I always enjoy exploring the complexities of the human mind.
Me too.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning into QuickSpeak. We hope you found this episode helpful and encouraging. Remember, you are unique and capable of achieving amazing things, so go out there and embrace your own journey with all its twists and turns. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more English learning content. You can also visit our website, which is linked in the description for vocabulary lists and exercises related to today's episode. Keep practicing and keep learning, and we'll see you next time.